happy to say I'm joined by an old friend, Reginald Charlot, who is the Managing Director of Tourism Market Development for NYC Company. It's been a long 18 months, perhaps more, since we've seen each other, so good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too.
Yeah.
It's been a very long time.
2019, New York was on the rise. There was 66.6 million visitors. The pandemic happened.
Right.
How bad, I mean it's been bad, but how bad was it overall?
Well, Fionn, it's great to see you. It's been
you.
Great to see you. It's been, as we said, it's been a long time,
Yeah.
and I'm desperate. I am desperate to get back to Ireland. But in regards to New York and how bad it was horrific. It was a total shutdown of the city that moves, that never sleeps, as everybody says. It fell asleep. It was quiet. Just the difficulties of the number of deaths and just like how quickly everything turned around and changed and just shut down and things were just not moving and functioning.
Yeah.
It was difficult for New Yorkers to have to be stuck in their home and put into their homes and not be able to move.
Yeah.
It was difficult for us not to be able to breathe and kind of have activities. So it really made it a big challenge for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank God. Reopening has been happening. We've had this great news about international borders reopening, finally. But New York hasn't slept in terms of launching its reopening. You've got this $30 million reopening campaign, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the single biggest amount spent on a marketing campaign in New York City and Co.'s history.
Yes, so we're very privileged and very lucky to have received this these lovely funds to help promote New York City. The mayor of New York City had gifted us this, if you will, to help promote New York City, to get that message out there. Initially it was to the domestic market, but now it's going to, with the news that we've just heard on last week, is going to evolve to go international. So we're very excited about having this It's Time for New York City campaign.
And is the pivot from a domestic focus to an international focus relatively easy to make?
Yes, because I don't mean to be cocky, but it's New York City. So I think that's part of the cachet. I think obviously clearly domestic has been on the lion's share of the 60 million that you had mentioned. Domestic is the lion's share of individuals who will be able to who come to New York City. Right? It's easy. It's close. Boom, done. International. We love our international travelers. I love my Irish travelers, of course, because you stay longer, you spend more money.
Sure.
That's the key. The exchange rate is much stronger. The euro to the dollar is much better, so you're going to spend more money. So that's really the key of why we love to go after the international markets, because of that fact. But we definitely have the domestic market, the U.S. travelers coming to New York City.
And you have a pretty substantial percentage of your overall numbers is international relative to, say, other popular destinations in the U.S.
Yes.
Okay. So that's a key thing.
Absolutely.
One of the things that was announced at the press conference was that Broadway is back.
Yes.
So Broadway, which has shuttered for 18 months, it's such a huge popular feature of a visit to the city. But when New York City and Company says Broadway is back, what does that mean in terms of what's the experience of going to see a Broadway show going to be like?
It's basically that people will be able to be in the theaters again to watch their favorite shows, their favorite musicals, whatever have you. They're going to have the same. They're going to have the protocols, because in New York City you have to have the required protocols of wearing a mask, being tested before you come into the building. But it's finally, after 18 months of nobody being able to see live performances, to have Broadway back. Yeah. And Broadway is really the performing anchor for New York City, for the world. I think that is really what people are saying when they say Broadway is back, is the fact that Broadway is back, we can actually go to the shows again.
Okay. But there won't be social distancing, the seating will be similar to what it was before.
It's going to be the way it was in March 12th of 2020.
So the day before.
The day before, where everybody sat down next to each other, but everybody has to have a mask. You have to have proof of a COVID test in order for you to enter the building. But it's going to be a full house. All seats will be taken. There is no reason not to.
New York has not shirked its responsibilities to the health of its own citizens and indeed visitors. One of the campaigns is the Key to New York City. Can you talk us through roughly what that means?
With the Key to New York City, I think basically what that means is that we're focusing on making sure that everybody stays healthy. We're making sure that everybody, when you come into various venues that are indoors, that you must show proof of vaccination.
Okay.
You must have that with an ID. because some people are trying to get around that, but in order for you to get inside any kind of venue, restaurant, Broadway show, a hotel, whatever it is inside of it, you must show proof in order for you to enter, and you have to wear a mask while you're inside that particular venue. Restaurants, obviously, you take your mask off while you're eating, but it's really kind of keeping those protocols in place to limit the spread of the disease. And New Yorkers, as much as New Yorkers are very outspoken and to the point and like this and the other, we're also really aware of how to follow the various protocols and respect the protocols. And there isn't any kind of questioning about what is being presented to us in regards to the safety standards that we need to maintain. We follow it to the letter.
It's an interesting. There's an interesting parallel when the smoking ban was first introduced into Ireland, nearly not quite 20 years ago. A good long time ago. There was this general sense that the Irish, being kind of individualists and a sense of like nobody's going to tell me what to do, that they would balk at its imposition, and yet, almost to a man, woman, there was absolute compliance, and nobody questioned the sanity of introducing a smoking ban in indoor spaces. So New York strikes me as a similar city, very strong-minded, strong-willed individual, but at the same time, there's the sense of the collective responsibility.
Correct. That's the case. I mean, the same thing with us when the smoking ban was put in place in New York City 20 some odd years ago. It was the same exact thing. People were saying, "Oh, how could this be?" 2-3 days later, they're like, "Oh, this is actually a good thing.
This is great.
This is actually wonderful. We don't have to come home smelling like a tobacco factory."
Indeed. And again, one of the things, I mean, the hotel rooms in the city, it's always these numbers stagger me. It's 110,000. Is it 110,000 new hotel rooms coming in?
100 hotel rooms in New York City total.
Oh, sorry, yeah, okay.
And then we're going to be building towards getting those numbers back up to what we had projected prior to the shutdown.
Okay. So and this is all happening now.
Yes, this is all happening now. There are hotels that are opening up now. That were opening up. Some were opening up during the pandemic, ironically enough. Some actually had shut down a little bit to kind of reopen to refurbish. Like, for example, the Plaza. The Plaza had shut down. They said, you know what? Let's take advantage of this. We'll close down for 8 months, refurbish. Won't have to worry about having guests coming in because nobody's coming in.
Sure.
And a lot of hotels have done the exact same thing to refurbish and then come out with a brand new, fresh look. Other hotels have delayed their openings, but they are opening. So that's the positive news for New York City in regards to hotels. And the funny thing is everybody's saying, oh, well, nothing's going to happen.
Sorry, let's hang on. Let's wait for this guy to finish.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So take it from the Plaza closed down.
Okay. So the Plaza closed down for 8 months. And during that 8-month period, they were able to go in, refurbish the space, and they reopened to a brand new and fresh Plaza.
Yeah.
And a lot of hotels have done the same thing. There are a lot of hotels that are opening up, which people thought, there's no way the hotel can open up. But they have. Hotels have been opening up in New York City on a regular basis. So the Pendry Hotel just opened up last week. It's a new hotel, luxury hotel on Pendry, Manhattan West.
Okay.
And it's located right next to Hudson Yards. So hotels are opening, which is a good sign because New York City knows that people are going to come back to New York City. They want to see New York City again. There are a number of hotels that are opening up in different parts of the city, which, as I told my lovely Irish, 5 boroughs, Irish. I know you love your Times Square. I know you love your Macy's, but we got to get you to go to Brooklyn and Queens and Staten Island and the Bronx and actually stay there. So there are hotels that are opening up. For example, the Rockaway Hotel, Rockaway Beach, which many people don't even rationalize or realize that New York City has beaches.
Yes.
This is a cool hotel on Rockaway Beach. You can go surfing. It's very hip and cool. There are a number of hotels in Long Island City, Queens, right across the river from the east side of Manhattan. The choices are endless.
Is there value advantage then in diffusing beyond Manhattan? Because, you know, Manhattan is Manhattan, so you expect to pay Manhattan prices for hotel room.
Which I completely agree with you, but there is an element of having a different experience in a different part of the city.
Sure.
Especially the Irish, because going from Ireland to New York City is like it's like a weekend. It's like going from Dublin to down to Cork. It's like a quick trip, and you go. So basically by doing that, you go, and if you've been to New York City 8 times, okay, you know what? You want to be able to go somewhere else and see something differently. So the opportunity to be able to go and see a different part of the city, to stay, and to feel like a local, because I think people want to have that kind of a local feel. Number one. Number two, also, if you go to different parts of the city, you have the opportunity to go and explore parks, because I know a lot of people said, you know what, I kind of want to be in open space.
Yeah.
And if you go to Brooklyn, for example, and I talk about Brooklyn ad nauseum because I live in Brooklyn, but there are a number of parks, open space, wonderful hotels. Queens, same thing also. There's a massive waterfront in Queens by Long Island City. You have a number of parks that are in Long Island City. You have the Bronx that everybody thinks, oh my God, the Bronx. But the Bronx is the greenest borough, has more parkland in the Bronx than it does in Manhattan.
It's also worth reiterating that all of these you mentioned, and let's also include Staten Island here, is that connections into Manhattan are quick, fast, and very affordable.
Absolutely. There's a subway that runs 24 hours a day.
And it's not, but some people feel like, oh, I can't figure out the subway map, but it's actually really easy.
It's very easy.
Yes.
If it says uptown, that means you're going north. If it says downtown, you're going south. If it says you're going towards if you're going towards the West Side Highway or West Side, you're going west. If you're going to the east, anything else, you're going east.
That's a good tip.
So it's very easy.
The predictions are 36.1 million visitors for 2021, which is just over half your record number from 2019.
Right.
But New York is all about, not about half numbers, and it's always about breaking records, get more and more and more. So when do you think you will break that 66.6 million that you had in 2019?
The prediction is 2025, 26 ideally, but who's to say that it can't happen sooner? I don't want to jinx it, but we have to be very, very pragmatic and thoughtful as to how things are going to work out, especially with the new news and how people are going to be traveling again. But we can get up to that number by about 2025 or so.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed indeed. Reginald Charlot, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.